Hey guys, welcome to the Fit Dad Lifestyle podcast. Today, I am incredibly excited to welcome Trent Cotchin to the show. So, Trent, three-time AFL Premiership winning captain with the Richmond Tigers, Brownlow Medalist, and one of the most respected leaders in the history of Australian rules football. Beyond his on-field achievements, Trent is a proud father, husband, and now navigating life post-footy. Today, we're going to deep dive into his journey as both a professional athlete and also as a father, exploring the highs, the lows, the challenges, and the lessons that he's learned along the way. So, welcome to the podcast, Trent.
Thank you very much for having me.
Mate, to a bit of a new tradition here at the Fit Dad Lifestyle, my son Harry is going to welcome the guest and ask the first question. So, mate, I'm just going to bring Harry on. He's going to hit the first question, and we'll get into it from there.
Beautiful. Hello, Harry. Fire away, my friend.
Oh, yeah. So, what was your favourite moment in the AFL?
It's a very good question. Given I played 16 years, there was lots of them. And it'd be rude for me not to mention 2017 because I think that was the unexpected premiership. So I'm sure you remember it. How old were you when we won our first premiership? How old are you now?
I'm 10.
So you were 3 years old. Do you remember it?
I don't remember watching it, but I watch all the highlights now.
Very, very good. Well, that would be one of my favorite moments, only because it was something we'd worked towards for a very long time. And then as I got a little bit older and had my own family that grew up with me playing footy, probably my favorite moment now reflecting was my 300th game. And that was because I had all the people that had supported me along my journey in the crowd, along with being chaired off with my three kids and my wife on the boundary was a really special moment for me to cherish, and that one that I will cherish for the rest of my life. So thanks for your question, and I hope that answers it good enough for you.
Thank you, Trent.
No worries, H. See you, buddy.
Thanks, H. Rightio, mate. How has becoming a father changed your perspective and I guess your life on not only your playing career, but also your career post football?
Yeah, I mean, I was a young dad, so growing up, I always thought I was pretty mature, and that those kind of things, once I did meet the right person in Brooke, would eventuate pretty quickly. She was always quite a motherly type. Again, both of us probably weren't caught up in kind of being your normal late teens to early 20-year-olds when we first got together. So that kind of fast-tracked the process of starting a family pretty young, and it kind of just suited our lifestyle. I was very disciplined in what I was trying to do and trying to get out of my football career. But it changed me because I was probably borderline obsessive in the initial phase, and like most professional athletes, very superstitious, always had to do the same routine. And what you don't get with kids is guarantees in routine. So I think I had to become more fluent and a little bit more patient and relaxed with regards to the way that I lived my life. And, it'd be unfair for me to say that the kids along that journey and Brooke haven't been incredibly selfless in the way that they've lived their lives to allow me to be as close to that routine-based athlete for my career. So it taught me that there's more to life than footy, and that if you don't have health and well-being and good structure in your life, then things can always get on top of you because you don't know what's going to be thrown at you. We've been very fortunate. Most of our kids have been really good sleepers. We had the odd night here and there, and you hear some of those horror stories where dads or mums are literally up kind of every couple of hours until kids are like 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. So, and I think a big part of that was just the discipline in the routine with kids' bedtimes and so forth. But certainly changed me for the better. But definitely, I would have said pre-becoming a dad, patience was one of my greatest strengths.
Yep.
And although that you would think that it taught me to be even more patient, I reckon patience has become less of a strength as the kids have got older and their needs have been different as they've grown up. My kids are now 10, 8 and 5. So when there's three of them, they're always craving attention. So that does peter on my patience at times.
Yeah, mate, I completely get that. And yeah, it's sort of when you're looking from the outset, you know, you look at normal fatherhood and then you look what that must look like from a sporting, world as well, or a professional athlete or, professional in any field. It's hard to understand how you juggle that, rigorous lifestyle and the demands of being not only a public figure, I guess, but, being in the spotlight and being, pulled from every direction, with your day job on, on and off the field. I can't imagine how you navigate that, successfully. And, like for the normal father, a tradie coming home, it's just come home, your dad, you go out in the shops, you go do whatever. But Trent Cotchin comes home and wants to go to the shops. He's getting harassed by, 400, not harass isn't the right word, but he's getting bombarded by 400 kids. He's getting, chatted by every Richmond fan or AFL fan in the public. And it must be hard to switch off and become just dad, in the public eye.
Yeah, and I probably it's definitely true. And I mean, everyone's story is their story, right? So it's unfair to compare that, but you only know what you've experienced. And I think that became the most challenging or the most obvious for me when our eldest went to school for the first time. And granted, it was only for a short period because that was COVID year, I think, or the year previous, whatever it was. But and the challenges that she faced with kids talking about her mum and dad, or dad in particular, in a different light. And, she would have moments as young as 5 years old where she kind of questioned whether someone was her friend because they liked her or whether they loved Richmond or loved the fact that I played sports. So, and then there was the polar opposite where, there was other kids who were maybe jealous or didn't like the Tigers and would treat her accordingly with regards to that as well. So that was probably the most trying time in the initial phase, and where we realized that it could have a significant impact. And, the advice I received was just to try to normalize it every time you're in the schoolyard. Like if, Trent Cotchin's here, I would try and just come back to them and say, yeah, I do play footy. That's my job, but I'm actually just Harper's dad. And I'm happy for you to call me that. So I tried to just normalize that I was like any other dad in the schoolyard. I had a pretty cool job that came with its different pressures to other people. But yeah, I think there's always more eyeballs on you than you probably are aware of. And that's been a challenge we continue to face today.
Yeah, mate, definitely. And is there any lessons from fatherhood that, helped you grow as a leader back at the club, like either on or off the field?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was fortunate enough to go on a really deep personal journey at the end of 2016, which was my most challenging year, both professionally and personally. And it's weird to say that, given that was the year that we had our second daughter in the June of that year. So I suppose the beauty of what kids do is that they literally teach you something new every single day. They challenge you in ways that other people certainly can't, but they also bring so much joy and happiness to your life as well. And I think the thing that I mean, going both ways, it's like you've got a younger group of guys that are going through something that's on field, off field, or away from the club kind of challenge. I think the thing that I lacked early days in my leadership journey was empathy. I don't think I was a harsh person, but I couldn't understand why someone would do something a certain way that I thought it needed to be done.
Yep.
And as an example, it might be, misconduct or behavior when they're out at a nightclub, or, the occasional dabble in drugs or whatever it is. And that was stuff that was not part of my life and never has been. But starting to understand the reasons why people do dabble in those kind of things, and having empathy to their situation rather than judging, was a huge lesson for me that probably my kids taught me. Like, you don't know what you don't know, and everyone's on their own journey. And that, I look at our three kids, and whilst there's so many different elements of them that are similar, there's also so many differences in the way that they react to certain situations, the way that they learn, the way that they navigate dealing with conflict. And that taught me to realize that the same goes for 44 teammates that I'm working with every single day, and trying to build those relationships and have an understanding of, motivation's a big thing, particularly with younger kids coming into the system today. Like, not everyone wants to be the next Dustin Martin. Some guys are just happy to get on a list and be able to tell their mates that they play AFL footy. And, I haven't really had to work that hard to get here. So I don't really know how to apply myself. But starting to understand their stories really did help me with like finding the triggers that would help them grow, both as a footballer, but also as a person. And I think a lot of that came from just navigating being a dad. And I think the one piece of advice I received really early on in the piece was there's actually no handbook for being a great dad, and everyone's on a path of learning and God, sickness, health, bullying, those kind of things, everyone deals with differently. And there's different triggers for people given what their experiences have been as they've grown up as well. So I think it's more just having an open mind and being curious to what makes people tick that helped me become a better leader, but also a better person.
Yeah, mate, you're spot on. And mate, it's interesting you said that about, the journey about different dads. You can have a dad in the same profession, same age, same suburb, but not one journey is the same. Fatherhood is different for their upbringing to how they met their partner, to their relationship, to their career, to their childhood, whether there was trauma, mental health issues, physical. Like there's so many differentiating factors that differentiate dads against each other. And it's the thing I think with social media these days as well is we get caught up in the comparison game. Like, oh, why does that family have this, or why are they going on that holiday, or why are they doing X, Y, Z, or why is their kid doing this before my kid? And it's so easy to get caught up in that sort of system of just like comparison. And it's one of the biggest things that I reckon is going against probably people in general, not just parents, but in able to just be happy and be more present in their current life, and taking a step back and appreciating what they've actually done rather than what they haven't achieved yet.
Yeah, no doubt. I think reflection is probably one of the most missed thing for people that are on their own journey, whether that be in their profession, in a relationship, as a parent. Like I even sit there and look at our 5-year-old son, literally graduated today from kinder, and they had a concert, exactly the same kind of concert 12 months ago. And I sit there and I'm like, he faced the other way in the room, barely participated. And he's typically not a shy kid. He's pretty happy to tell you exactly what he thinks of you. But to then see him today and sit there and go, wow, over the last 12 months, and there's been moments this year where, people tell you, oh God, it's going to be interesting how he goes at school next year because he can't apply himself here and so forth. And as a parent, you start to worry and think about things, and then you realize that so much of that is just someone else's opinion that really at the crux of it all, it really doesn't matter. Like as long as they're happy and they're growing, and the same goes for us on our journey. Like as long as you feel like there's genuine growth in whatever you're doing, you should be really proud of yourself. And just because you set your goal to be here and you land here, you've still come this far. So I think reflection's a huge part of overall happiness.
Mate, definitely. Mate, what role did your family play in helping you stay grounded throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, honesty, probably first and foremost. Like I have a great relationship with both my mum and my dad. Speak to my dad even to this day, nearly every day, every second day, because he's one of my best mates. But just enjoy hearing what he's up to up on the farm. But he was just one of those people that was, I think, he probably didn't say it a lot when I was a kid, was how proud he was and so forth, but maybe through actions or the way that you would overhear him speaking to other people, you knew that was the case. But I suffered from the perfection myth because I did what I established as I grew up. I was chasing my dad's love effectively through performance and football and anything else I tried to set out. So if I wasn't the best, I felt like I was failing him. But that didn't come from a pressure. I think it just came from a perception or what I thought needed to happen. But from a grounded point of view, I think it's more, sharing in that journey, being as involved as you possibly can, but not putting pressure on. And we kind of find ourselves now, Brooke and myself, she was a pretty naturally gifted sports person herself. But you don't want to feel like your kid's forced into doing anything that they want to. But if they are good, you want them to believe that they can be the very best in the world if that's what they do. But it's how you actually how you do that. So it's like the education piece that my parents always did. It's like, if something doesn't go your way, you don't carry on like an absolute clown. If you do win an award, it's in a humble way. You'll show appreciation to either the other participants or competitors or the people that have voted on that. So I think like it stems from the values that you're living every single day, not just in your sports field. So I would say that was what was driven into me from a young age.
Yeah, mate. I can imagine the pressures that are gonna, especially on your son and maybe your daughter. I'm not sure how the AFL women's and father son, father daughter rules and all that works, if it's even a thing these days. But I can imagine as they get older, what the pressure, external pressures are going to be, that they should be, going down that path, and maybe they don't want it. Maybe they want to be an engineer. Maybe they want to do something completely different. But it's going to be an interesting journey to watch that one unfold.
Yeah. Oh, and we're fortunate, like they do, all of our kids love footy, but they also love a number of other sports. And that's kind of, we sit there and they're like, well, if you want to go and do soccer, go and play soccer. That's fine. And my son loves that at the moment. And it'll depend on as they grow up, what they're passionate about. But as long as they follow their dreams, I don't really care what sport or passion that they proceed with, but as long as they have one.
Yeah, mate, 100%. Mate, how did you involve your kids in your journey as a AFL footballer? And were there ever, on the field or off the field? And was the club very welcoming with, players that had children and getting them involved as much as possible?
Yeah, I was fortunate because I came into a club where at the time Damien Hardwick and his ex-wife Danielle were just brilliant family people. And they had three beautiful young kids who have kind of grown up in front of me as well, now doing their own thing and doing really well in it. But I think from the very early stages, Dimmer tried to implement the fact that we were a family club, and the hardest thing is that you can't implement that until your players actually start having families themselves. So I think I was very fortunate that there was a few players around my age that had kids at a similar time, and you can decide that you want to kind of keep it ultimately or ultra professional and they're on the perimeter like everyone else, or like what all local footy clubs do, bring families in because that's effectively the hub of the community. And
Yeah.
I think we kind of just, our what I believe our superpower was as a footy club through our dominant little era was connection, and that came back to relationships, people, and families, obviously at the core of that. So we definitely embraced it. We brought them in. There was, and the hardest thing is that the guys that don't have families or kids have to embrace that. Otherwise, it does feel a little bit awkward at times. So very lucky to have a great bunch of guys that almost become part of your extended family as well.
Yeah, mate. It's one of the, we watch the games every weekend, and it's actually one of the most exciting things I love seeing is the players and bring their kids in the inner sanctum, or the team song or whatever it is. And I think that's really special for you guys to get to it in, and you're not looking at it from a public's perspective and getting that, but you're actually just living and breathing your fatherhood journey. For you, it's just normality, but for everyone else, you get to see a glimpse of how well that actually looks and how well the clubs actually go about doing those special things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the standout moment for me was like as great a challenge as it was the hub year in 2020. Like to go away, we decided as a family we were going to kind of just do it from the very beginning, whereas some of the other boys kind of said, "Oh, we'll see what pans out over the next 4 or 5 weeks, and if there's another option, we'll bring our families up then." So my beautiful young family that were, I think, all under five at the time, literally lived in the complex with 40 odd footballers. And it was some of the greatest time. I remember we finished up, we were lucky enough to win the Premiership, spent maybe another 3 or 4 days, and then we travelled south because Victoria was still kind of closed, and ended up in Lennox Head and then Berry. And our son, who was only 15, 16 months at the time, was like, just wasn't himself. He's normally a very happy kid. Seemed like he genuinely had a bit of the blues, and took him to the doctor because he had this rash as well. We were like, oh my God, what's going on with him? And couldn't really work it out. They just said, oh, it might be some sort of infection that's going on inside. I don't know. And then Tom Lynch and his now wife dropped in where we were staying in Berry, and his whole like life just changed. And it was like, wow, you think about it, he spent probably nearly half his life in the hub with 40 other kids pretty much in teammates. And that was taken away from him like that. So,
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, very, very fortunate for them to experience that. Some of my greatest memories at a footy club were in the hub, as much as it was a challenging time for everyone. But yeah, I think if you ask my kids how much it means to them and the journey that they've been on, they'd speak very fondly of it.
Yeah, fantastic. And mate, what has life after footy been like for you, and what do you and the family have going on now?
Too much and not enough. I mean, I was lucky enough during my career that I had some interest that whether we invested some money or well, started a positivity company called Posy Socks, and now we've ventured into We Are Posy. So socks, we're now doing more apparel with t-shirts, hats. But effectively, the whole idea is anything purchased on an e-commerce platform, we take a portion of those sales, put it into a little fund, and then we do acts of positivity called Pieces of Posy in the community with people that are either celebrating and doing the things that we love to see or going through a bit of a hard time. And that really just comes back to my purpose that I established in 2016 in helping others realize and fulfilling their potential, but also wanting to make the world a more positive and happy place. So um, that's one thing that we have going on. We've got a school program and a pilot starting next year that we're really excited to launch, but can't do too much on that yet. We have a Pilates studio called Core Plus in Essendon, our local area, that we've been involved in from the overall brand for probably 4 or 5 years now, but only opened our studio 9 or 10 months ago, and that's going really well. Brooke focuses a lot of her time and energy on that, but again, connected to health and well-being and helping people live their best life. And I did a little bit of media this year, started a podcast. We're kind of through nearly one season now called Shaped, and that's all around the transition, which I'm currently in. And there has been transition for ex-professional athletes and what they're doing now, whether that be 2 years or 10 years or even 20 years. So, but also the defining moments and the things that have shaped them to who they are now, both from the good and the bad times. And I've really enjoyed that because it dials up one of my values in curiosity. I get to ask lots of questions and learn heaps from those conversations, probably much like yourself. And I don't know, I just really enjoy the fact that people feel comfortable to sit there and be really open and vulnerable about their journey. We've had a range of guests on with, both successful careers, maybe not so successful careers in some people's eyes, but all have this beautiful story and some lessons that are helping educate other people around the world. So thoroughly enjoying that, and then a bit of media stuff as well. So the thing I promised myself, and I helped the Lions with some leadership stuff last year, and spent a bit of time with Harry Grant from the Melbourne Storm, which I'll continue this year as well. So I've got my finger in quite a few pies, but still trying to work out exactly what the next phase of life looks like. But I'm in no rush to kind of work that out.
Yeah, mate. Sounds like you got to be going. And for those listening right now, I will include all those links to everything Trent's got going on with Posy Socks and Core Nine and all these other things. Or Core Plus, sorry, was it Core
Oh, plus,
Plus?
yeah.
Core Plus. Yep, in the show
I'm on
notes
core nine though.
descriptions. Core Nine, yeah, mate. What new routines or habits have you adapted post career since you're not being paid to be a professional athlete and to be at the most elite physical condition? Have you adapted to any new fitness regimes, and do they include anything with the family as well?
Yeah, I mean, from a routine point of view, I always try and make sure I'm either at school drop off or school pickup, just because it's something that's important to me. Kids aren't young for their whole lives. They do grow up, and I'm sure there'll be a time where they don't want me dropping them off or walking them in. So trying to maximize as many opportunities there. From a routine point of view, as part of my journey from a personal point of view and working out, I like to call it a daily 80. So I kind of have 5 things of a morning that I like to tick off, which is exercise, journaling, um, going for a walk, having a coffee, and then cold therapy. And probably the cold therapy is the one that's dropped off since not playing, but particularly in Melbourne's winters, it's not too much fun jumping in the pool at that time. But for me, that's ticking off 4 of those 5 things every single morning is really important for me being my best self. And exercise is a huge part of that luckily, when you own a Pilates studio, you have no excuse not to go somewhere. But I suppose what I learned was just how I can understand how people struggle to prioritize that sometimes. You do get caught up in making sure that, all your work's done and the kids are the priority. So it is hard to fit it in. But what I've also learned is that it's pretty hard not to find 15 or 20 minutes. And if that means you have to go to bed 10 minutes earlier and get up 10 minutes earlier, there's your 20 minutes. So they're kind of the things that I've learned that are important. But I've also realized that the moment I go away from those 4 or 5 things every morning, I just can't be my best. And clearly, being a dad or mum requires a huge amount of energy on top of what you're trying to set out and do for yourself every single day. So I think for me, it's the daily routine that helps, and the planning around that. Like the thing that probably going from having 16 years of someone pretty much writing my structure week to week every single year, except for kind of 2 months of the year. I've had to become really disciplined in my planning and making sure that, I know that I've got my 2 Pilates sessions booked in a week, sometimes 3. I do a couple of weight sessions and I go for a couple of runs as well. So those small little things that you build into your week, and then on the back of that, structuring your day as well. I know that we've been trying to catch up for a long time, so I do apologize, but
no, that's fine.
Yeah, I think these are all the things that I've kind of learned as I've gone, and I've realised how important friends are, because I was fortunate enough to be in a job where I went to work with 40 odd mates, but 10 really close ones every single day, and the banter was great, and the humour and the camaraderie was there every single day, and you don't get that when you step away from a footy club. So I've just built that into part of my routine as well. It's like on a Wednesday morning, I train with a couple of mates. On a Friday morning, it's a different couple of mates, just to have that touch point. Because I think as we get older and we get more busy with our lives and our kids and our families, you almost find excuses not to, or you feel like you have to book them in too far in advance. And sometimes they just don't eventuate. So just being really disciplined with making sure that there's touch points all the way along with those you love and care about.
Yeah, mate, I think you hit the nail on the head there with the discipline, and especially the early morning stuff as well. It's one thing I found is the key to a lot of dads, finally being able to achieve those results with the goals and, aspirations that they might have, because there's that early morning, whether it be 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., depending on what their daily schedule is, there's no one pulling you from any directions. There's no sick kids. There's no after school sport. There's no phone going off. There's, social media, emails. It's just that one-on-one time with yourself to work on that physical and mental health. And I think, that is, in my opinion, and I've seen it firsthand with the thousands of dads we deal with, it's, the key to success is trying to get something done before the day takes it away from you.
Absolutely. I am trying to work on my biceps and triceps, and I can see you've got some nice ones. If you've got any tips, let me know.
Mate, I'll send you the arm routine afterwards.
Done.
Mate, I know you've got to shoot off. I've got one final question, and it's a question we've asked over 170 guests on the podcast, and the answers are always amazing and inspirational. But if you could go back to day one of fatherhood and ask yourself something you know to be true today, what would that be?
Ask yourself something.
Sorry, tell yourself something you know to be true, not ask.
I would tell myself, it's a very good question, and I do like it. I would tell myself that I am enough and I don't need to be perfect. And there's no need to feel guilty at different times, because being a dad, and as I keep saying, and a mum, is bloody hard. But there's plenty of people around you that want to support you, and you're doing a fucking good job.
Mate, I love it. That's amazing. Well, Trent Cotchin, mate, I highly appreciate you taking your time to jump on the podcast today. For everyone listening, check out the description and the show notes. I'll make sure I have every link in there possible to see what Trent's doing or get behind any of his ventures. And, mate, you go enjoy the rest of the afternoon with the family.
Thanks, mate. Look forward to seeing more guests appear on the Fit Dad Lifestyle.
Mate, thank you. I highly appreciate it.